Entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion. This is what today's guest, Jim Beach, believes and preaches. Hey, I didn't say I'd always bring guests that I agree with on this show. In this episode, you'll learn why creativity, risk, and passion are not requirements for starting your own business. In fact, creativity, risk, and passion are simply myths of inactivity that keep you stuck exactly where you are. You'll also learn Jim's corridor principle to help you create the clarity you seek in terms of your entrepreneurial goals. Jim's entire theory is around the idea, his desire to get you off the sofa. Jim is a keynote speaker, award-winning radio host, and best-selling author. He's presented to the White House and has done multi-city speaking tours for both UPS and Wells Fargo. Jim has been referred to as the Simon Cowell of venture capital by CNN and has appeared on NPR, MBNBC, CNN, and in the New York Times. Today's episode is sponsored by How to Conquer Your Bullshit with CPR, my free training that will help you bring your message to the masses. It's free, people. Go and download it at rubyfremon.com/CPR. And finally, whether you're new to this podcast or a loyal thought leader, please make sure to take a moment to drop a rating and review on iTunes. Now, it is time to get off the fucking sofa and get into a good, healthy debate with Jim Beach. Hey, thought leaders, we are back, and this guest and I connected at the New Media Summit back in September. I know I've had a few guests on here from that event, but this particular guest and I share a very different opinion on what entrepreneurship is all about. So, Jim, welcome to today's Thought Leader. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor.
So I've been calling this episode, I've been talking to Jim about this and calling it a debate. So whether or not this turns into like a full-fledged debate, that remains to be seen. But what I'd love is, how about Jim, how about you tell our audience your thoughts on what entrepreneurship is not?
Okay. So I think that if we were to go down the street and ask 100 people, what do you think entrepreneurship is? That 99 of those people would agree that entrepreneurship is creative people taking risks to start businesses that they're passionate about. Something like that. Right. There's a creativity piece, there's a risk piece, and there's a passion piece.
Yep.
And I just don't agree with any of those three at all. So I'll go through the three of them. Creativity, 93% of existing businesses are copies of other businesses. Mm-hmm. That data comes from the London School of Economics and Babson University Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And I just challenge you to think of how many hotels there are, you know, the Marriott, the Hyatt, the Hilton, the Day Inn, right? But if I were to start a new hotel company, would you call me an entrepreneur? I think most people would, right? So there's no like requirement that I be creative there.
Right.
93% of us steal our idea from someone else. And so the idea that I'm going to not be an entrepreneur until I get some creative idea is what scares me. I want people to go ahead and get off the sofa and just start a Me Too copy business. It's better than waiting and not being an entrepreneur. Second, risk. Every entrepreneur that I meet, successful entrepreneur, someone who's worth $10 million, $100 million, I know a couple of billionaires, they do every single thing they can to reduce risk. They don't want risk, they reduce it. And they use other people's money, they pre-sell, they get patents, they acquire trademarks. They do anything they can to reduce the risk of that business failing. And so I don't believe that entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, embrace the risk moniker. Many of us have taken a substantial risk, but our advice to our 18-year-old child would be, do it with as little risk as possible. And then number three, passion, and I think that this is where you and I will disagree, is the passion idea. I love passion. I think it is awesome. for the church, the synagogue, the mosque, and occasionally the front porch and the bedroom. You know, the passion is a very strong word. And I would wonder what you're passionate about. Is it passion about the thing you're selling? Well, we have another word for that. That word is materialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I love my purses that it keeps me up in the middle of the night, that's weird, that's bad, right? But passion should keep you up in the middle of the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would propose an alternative that I am passionate about a couple of things. I am passionate about my family, my little kids, all of my wife. I love my family and all of that. I'm also passionate about my lifestyle, the freedom, the ability to work more if I want, work less if I want, the fact that I don't report to the man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm passionate about the entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Right.
And I will run almost any business that's moral and mostly legal if it helps me live that lifestyle.
So let's pause right there, because that means there is passion involved with your entrepreneurial endeavor, because it's giving you the lifestyle that you want and you're passionate about the lifestyle.
Right. So what I'm suggesting is that I don't have any problem with passion. And if you're a lucky person
Mm-hmm.
who is passionate about what you do, Godspeed, you're the lucky one. What
Right.
I'm saying is if you're sitting on the sofa
Uh-huh.
and you don't know what your passion is yet, do not use that as an excuse
Right.
for inertia. You still go start a business that maybe you don't necessarily love it. I used to sell women's purses, Ruby, and
Mm-hmm.
I had an entire business devoted to women's accessories.
Right.
And you've seen how I dress. I'm not a dresser. I don't care what I wear, right? So, but the business helped me accomplish what I did want to do, which was have more money to go to Disney more with my kids, because I am
Right.
very passionate about that.
Right. So the passion, how you're positioning it, is the passion doesn't necessarily have to be the thing that you are doing in your business, but it's providing you with what you need to create that lifestyle that you're passionate about.
Right. So I don't want people to obsess with what am I passionate about,
Right.
or my passion isn't market worthy. I'm passionate. For example, I'm passionate about woodworking, and I can show you here in the room some of the pieces of furniture that I built. I built this desk right behind me if you want to see it. I'm passionate about that, but I'm not very good. Right? I'm not very good. So I have to acknowledge that my passion is not something that's going to support me in the way that my wife has become accustomed to.
Right. So I want to rewind and go to creativity for a second I want to go to risk. Actually, that's what I want to go to first.
Sure.
So you shared that the majority of super successful entrepreneurs are always striving to reduce risk in their businesses. Do you not feel that there is a time for an entrepreneur to be willing to take more risks, aka in the first 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 years of their business?
Sure, I'll accept that, but then I would argue, just because you're willing to accept a little bit more risk, quitting your job, or not having health insurance for 6 months, or double mortgaging the house, doesn't mean that that's what you should try to do, right? I would suggest that there is perhaps a better alternative way. So may I tell the story of Joey Tatum?
Yes, tell us about Joey.
Joey dreamed, as so many men do, of owning a bar where everyone knows his name, and having a bar stool in a restaurant and things like that. And he was working on a shrimp boat for University of Georgia, cleaning up behind the students.
Okay, so far this sounds like Forrest Gump meets Cheers.
It's exactly what it is. And so he was only able to save $5,000, and he said, I'm starting. And he started a bar with $5,000. It was an absolute dump. It had a linoleum floor with exposed cinder block walls and the metal rafters that you could see the metal rafters in the ceiling. In the first weekend, he didn't have enough money to get a keg, so they only had individual 12-ounce beers at a bar.
Mm-hmm.
But he made enough money during weekend 1 to stay open until weekend 2. off of his $5,000 investment. Well, now 20 years later, he owns half the college town that he operates in and runs countless bars because, he did what it took to reduce the risk, which perhaps means reducing your goal or changing your dream. Maybe your dream of owning $1 million restaurant is the 5th step in the plan, not the first step in the plan.
Right.
I just want you to get off the sofa. And if it means starting a smaller business, I'm okay with that, as long as you don't spend more money than you can afford to lose, because a lot of us are going to lose some of that money. So I like to say $5,000. That's what I spend on a week's vacation. And if I can afford to take a week vacation, I can afford to lose that money.
Right.
Well,
it's really, what's interesting to me is, I get the risk aversion part. I get like, okay, let's reduce the risk. Don't spend more than you actually have. Like, basically, don't be insane, right? But sometimes that in itself takes creativity. You have to get creative to do things in a different way in order to reduce the risk. So now all of a sudden you're back in the creative bucket.
Sure, I'll give you that. That's a very good point. There's no, I can't argue that. Again, my argument about creativity is we are going to require some sort of action that gets us off the sofa.
Right.
And don't let it be the lack of an idea that forces you to sit there, right? That's just not going to be acceptable in my world, right? So go read Inc. magazine, find out what someone in Seattle is doing it, and you go do it in Dubuque. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I'm suggesting. That action is better than waiting on a creativity lightning bolt from God that may never come, right?
Right.
So we're just realizing that most businesses are copies of other businesses, I think helps get a lot of people off of the sofa. Just realizing that 93% of the other entrepreneurs out there copied, and therefore I can too, and it's okay. Well, maybe now it's conceivable that I could go start a business. My brother-in-law, he's got a really successful business, and he's a moron, and he could do that business too.
Right.
And so what's wrong with all of a sudden having new opportunities to explore simply because things that used to seem out of bounds are now inbounds?
Right. But like, if you're just going to take another business and copy it and then put that out into the world, then what are the chances of you actually making that a very successful business? Because it's just a reiteration of something that's already been done, and maybe it's been done multiple times already.
So I don't know that I said that exactly. I want you to copy, but improve the daylights out of. So every single aspect of what they do, I want you to do better. So my very first business, when I was 24, I started a summer camp business, and we copied another summer camp. They were at Clark Crest Resort in Connecticut. I was at MIT and Stanford. Where would you rather send your kid for the summer? Clark Crest Resort in Connecticut, which is beautiful in the 1950s. In the 1950s, it was a beautiful resort. Right. Or to Stanford or MIT. So in other words, I did the exact same business that he did.
Yeah.
I just made mine infinitely better.
Right.
So I certainly believe in iteration. I certainly believe in improvement and all of the other things that are tangential to creativity, but not necessarily the ideation core itself.
Right. Okay. So you can copy, but then improve on it, make it better.
That's right.
I mean, really, your bottom line with this entire discussion is really just trying to get people off their asses and get moving. And
I know you like the F word. I want them to effing get off the sofa.
You can say it, Jim.
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't say it. Okay, got it. I can say it for you. Get off your fucking asses. So with that being said, I will give you that. One of the things that I have a lot of, clients come to me or people in my audience will say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. And so they don't take action. And it's like, well, just do something, anything, because the more action you take, the more clarity you gain. And yet so many people are just waiting for, like you said, like a lightning bolt, like something to just miraculously drop in their lap, and then they will take action.
Yes.
Which is
May I introduce a new topic?
Oh, yes.
I would like to introduce the corridor principle. I think this is really relevant to our conversation. Corridor, like a hallway.
Oh, a corridor. Okay.
Corridor.
It's one of those words that's really, it's a corridor.
I speak Southern, so I know you don't understand me. So anyway, you're at the entrance of a long hallway, okay? Uh-huh. And in this hallway, you can see that there are many rooms off to the right and left. But because of your position at the entrance to the hallway, you can't see what's in the room. Mm-hmm. The only way to see what's in the room, maybe we should put a name to what's in the room. Let's say that there's an opportunity in each one of these rooms.
Okay.
The only way to see that opportunity is to start walking down the path of entrepreneurship,
right,
down the corridor of activity and action. And once you get halfway down, your perspective changes, your situation changes, mm-hmm. your self-confidence changes, your ability to execute has all improved. Mm-hmm. And now you can see into new rooms and see new opportunities that you would never have seen before. And you know what one of those very well could be? Mm-hmm. Your passion, right. Your why. And you won't discover it until you go down that path a little bit of the way.
Yeah. No, that's a great visual. And I think you should just call it the hallway, because corridor is just one of those weird words. But yeah, I totally see that. And I totally agree with that. And I think that this is very specific to those who have an entrepreneurial dream, period. But I think it's different for those who are really determined to fulfill or pursue what feels most purposeful for them. For the people who are really seeking to do something that feels purposeful, then for them, I say, like, do little things, the things that excite you, right? Like, take actionable steps on stuff that actually excites you. And the more that you do that, the more clarity you gain on which direction you're supposed to go. Because if you take this one action step that's going to lead you to the left today, maybe the next action step will lead you to the right. And you'll just start getting closer to what actually feels right in terms of, intention and purpose. And for those people, purpose usually equates to passion. We're passionate about what feels to be our purpose.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. I win.
You win as long as the listeners are getting off the sofa and starting something.
Yeah, I think that is the one thing I will agree 1,000% with you. I think there's far too many people who have this, vague, cloudy dream. All they know is they want to either create more freedom, or they don't want to have a boss anymore, or they're just tired of doing the 9 to 5. Cool. So instead of waiting for that big idea to land, I'll give you
move now. Go now.
Go copy something now.
Right.
Go take action now. Go do something now. I'll give you that for sure.
Right. So these are the myths. I call them the myths of inactivity. The myth that I have to be creative. The myth that I have to spend $100,000 to start my business. The myth that I have to love the stuff I'm selling. Right.
Right.
I just want people to reconsider all three of those, and hopefully one of the listeners will say, "Hey, that makes sense to me," and I've got $7,200 saved up, and I am going to go copy what my brother-in-law is doing,
Yeah.
So
and improve on it a little bit.
And make it a lot better.
I mean, if for anyone who watches Shark Tank, like, this is something that they bring up all the fucking time, is people will come in with products, and if it's a product that's similar to something that's already out there, they get called out and they won't get a deal. But if it's a product that's similar to something out there and it's been approved upon, they usually get a deal.
Right.
Yeah, people want, it's very much the same in thought leadership. I always say, like, if you have an idea or an opinion or something that is different, um, something that is the same as what other people are saying, but you have your own spin on it or your own take on it, that will help you stand out, because you're not then just copying and reiterating what someone else is saying. You've got your own spin on it and you've made it your own thing. So that I agree with too. Um, where I struggle, I'll be honest, Jim, where I struggle with all of this is because I'm so ingrained in the purpose driven space. I mean, that's the space I thrive in and I live in, and this is where all my clients come from. And I'm going to go ahead and assume majority of my listeners are in that space. Is there's a lot of people who feel as though they have a purpose and they want to pursue something that feels more purposeful and more intentional in their life, and they're struggling to get off their asses. You're saying just go out and take action, copy something else, and then eventually you'll start to create what then feels like your purpose. So essentially what you're saying is don't try and force it to happen immediately.
When is the hardest time to find a date?
Right
When
now.
you
I
never
don't
find
know.
a girlfriend, when you're looking for a girlfriend.
Oh,
You know, haven't you found that to be true? I know both of us are married now,
yeah.
right? But I always remember when I was dating, if I tried to go out there and push it, it
Yeah.
never worked, right?
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly endorse the concept and the pursuit of purpose and intentionality. What I'm proposing, though, is that maybe your purpose is not something as cool as helping the world. Maybe it is just providing a really good living for my family and setting a really good role model for my kids. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be a great entrepreneur, which is going to change many generations of my family.
Yes.
And that could be enough of a purpose. Or I'm
Yeah.
suggesting that, as the hallway principle
Yes.
suggests, we may not discover our purpose immediately in life. You may have to go through 2 or 3 iterations of stuff in order
Yeah.
to discover your purpose. So I know many, 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 many divorce lawyers, counselors, uh, people who believe in helping those who have been divorced, who only discovered that passion after their own miserable divorce.
Right.
You know, I
Yeah.
know a lot of sex abuse counselors who are in that profession because they were abused sexually,
Right.
right? I think that a lot of jazz singers are jazz singers because they've had these miserable things happen in their lives, and therefore they have something to sing about, right? That's the essence of jazz, right? Is something to complain about and
Right.
tell a horrible story, right? I think that we are naive to think that our purpose is going to bite us in the ass at 22,
Yeah.
or just because we're looking for it, right?
Yeah.
I think that many of us will unfortunately discover our purpose when we are 52 and have given up looking for it. And you
Yeah.
say, hell with this. My purpose, I thought, was to be the whatever. But
Yeah.
you know what? I gave up on that. And hell, I discovered my real purpose is to help children just like my grandchildren, and all of a sudden I get involved in something new because I saw what my grandchild was going through, and my grandchild is autistic, and all of a sudden I realize my purpose is to help autistic kids, but I can't discover that until I have the grandchild in the first place.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that too. I always say your purpose is meant to evolve as you evolve too. So like my purpose today is probably way different than my purpose is going to be 5 years from now or even in a year. And let's, let's be real. Like I'm a businesswoman. I'm not in this to make $0 and suffer in my lifestyle and my personal life. I'm in this to make money, and I'm also in this to change lives. So what I've done is I've found work that feels intentional and purposeful for me, work that I'm really fucking good at. And then I find the opportunities within it in regards to my target demographic, who I work with. and see that, oh, there's an opening here. I'm going to take up space in this opening and become the expert thought leadership coach. And so there's strategy behind what I do too. And I wanted to be transparent about that because I don't want people to think like, oh, it just like landed one night. I'm going to be the coach for the new generation of thought leaders. That is my fucking purpose. No, it's evolved in this direction and I'm smart. Like I found an opportunity and I took it. So
As you were walking down the hallway thing.
As I was walking down the hallway of life.
And maybe you don't even know it. You know, I mean, a lot of people are walking down the hallway and they don't know it yet.
Right.
Right? They don't even know of the metaphor. And so it's just a useful thing to think of and realize, hey, I don't have to be super creative. Hey, I don't have to be super risky. And hey, I may be halfway there already. And I just didn't realize that yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's I mean, it's a really fantastic metaphor and visual for all of our listeners to start thinking about now, you know, especially those of you who feel like you want to dive into entrepreneurship or you're looking for your purpose, like get off the fucking sofa and do something, take action. Again, that's something that me and Jim agree on, and it will come. It will come. Yeah. Jim,
I think we agree on most stuff.
We did, actually. We agree on most stuff. I think that where this really differs is where you're at in your journey. I think, you know, if you're in a place where you need to support your family, don't be a fucking moron and be risky and wait for perfect ideas to drop. I mean, I'm going to tell a really quick story, Jim, because I think you're going to appreciate this. I was at the Rich Litvin Intensive, and he's somewhat of a mentor of mine, and he's a coach for coaches. And there was a coach in the audience who was complaining about making no money and barely being able to keep a roof over his and his girlfriend's head and not knowing what to do. And Rich was like, his response was simple: go get a job. And this coach's jaw dropped. He's like, he couldn't believe that his mentor, this coach he looked up to, just said, go get a job. But people have this really fucked up mentality where they get so wrapped up with, I can only do things that are purposeful or intentional, and they forget all about financial responsibilities and life. So get off your sofa.
I was a bartender when I had my good job. I used to have a good corporate job. I would leave that and go straight to my bartending job and work until 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to work at a marketing agency, and then I'd work at the nightclubs at night. I mean, do whatever it takes. Jim, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
Yes. You know, let me address procrastination a tiny bit.
Yes.
The idea, so I accept that I have to get off the sofa now. That means that I have to do this big thing.
Right.
That sounds really hard. And I am one of the world's best procrastinators. I'm really good at it. I've perfected it over the years. And as an entrepreneur, that's a really bad trait to have. So I would suggest people, instead of saying, I have to accomplish this huge thing, break this huge thing down into 54 different elements and say, today I have to do number 54.
Right.
Okay, I can do that. And tomorrow I'm going to do number 53. Okay, I can do that, right?
Yeah.
So take the hard, big, mega thing that seems really or just too overwhelming, like starting a business and getting off the sofa and all of that, and break it down into its tiny, 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 tiny minutia.
Yeah.
And you do a little bit of minutia every day, and you're not procrastinating, and it's not so bad.
I love that. One small thing every day.
That's it.
Jim, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can stalk you online?
Very simple. I am at Entrepreneur Jim on the Twitter thing. And I am jimbeach.com. Very simple.
Super simple. Jim, thank you so much for being here. This was fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
I just want to say thank you to our listeners for joining us on today's episode of Today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. Be sure to drop a rating and review on iTunes. And if you have something to say to either myself or Jim, reach out to us on the interwebs. My handle is at I am Ruby. See you here next week with a brand new episode of Today's Thought Leader.